Against this right back, Charlie, definitely.
There's always just that active red line defenders. I think it's like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Man. Come on. As Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. It's Arsenal versus Manchester City. I've got a special guest. Obviously, he's a Manchester City fan. I know you've had some technical difficulties. So what are you saying, my guy? I hope you're well and safe. I hope I can hear you and you can hear me and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm really good. How are you? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, you're good on my side, man. There's nothing to worry about, man. You're good. You're good, man. You're good. You're good. So yeah, man, just before we begin, obviously let people know about your channel and the stuff you do and things like that. And as usual, once again, my guy, thank you for tuning in and doing this with myself.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, mate. Typical City, yeah, just started really last year, but a bit half-heartedly, doing match vlogs after the game. Just a little bit of match reactions, but this year started in summer transfer, doing a bit of transfer news and doing a bit more daily content, and it's picked up a little bit since then and doing all right since then. So can't see many Arsenal fans tuning in, to be honest, but yeah, like and subscribe to Typical City if you do want to see some City stuff. So
like the man said himself, make sure you're subscribing to Typical City. You kind of touched on it, and I've always found it interesting as a content creator because you kind of said you was doing it half-heartedly and then you've kind of jumped 2 feet in. What was kind of the moment or the spark that made you think, you know what, let me take it seriously now?
Just to be honest, guys like yourself, like people out there doing it a bit more frequently and regularly and trying a bit, you know, you can see the graft that goes in, and I'm finding out the hard way, mate. The graft, it's serious, isn't it? It's serious. You have to commit, don't you? So I thought, if you're going to do something properly, you know. So rather than do it half-heartedly, I just thought I'd jump in, and summer transfer was a good time to start. So let's get cracking.
No, you started at the right time, man, because kind of the content makes itself. As you know, there's nonsense transfer rumors and all that stuff every minute of the day. So you started at the right time. Obviously, it's Arsenal versus City. Before we kind of get into specifically Arsenal versus City, I wanted to ask you, what do you make of Manchester City's start to the season? Because I know you've had some injuries. Typically, they always say City start kind of slow. I think you've actually, points on the board, you've actually started probably better than last year. So what's kind of the sentiment around the start of how you've, began the campaign?
Yeah, definitely faster than I predicted. To be honest, 6 games out of 6 before the Wolves game, and then the Newcastle game in the League Cup as well made it 2 losses in a row. 2 losses in a row isn't typical form, but you normally see a blip this stage of the season. Last season we went away to Newcastle, which is no easy place to go, is it? But drew 3-3. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, in terms of our form, we haven't had the toughest fixtures. We have played Newcastle at home, though. So the fixtures, this is our big test. You know, this is the real test that's really going to see the form that we're actually in. But RB Leipzig game midweek, it was a momentum swing for City because two losses in a row. The last thing we needed would have been a 3rd loss in a row and about to head to the Emirates for looking at potentially a 4th loss in a row, which would be disastrous form, really flipped on its head. So thankfully, the performance against RB Leipzig, though, was really good. But it's Rodri that he was in the team. And I said it in the preview before the RB Leipzig game that actually playing Rodri could further highlight his importance, and if we go and play Rodri right in the middle of the pit, in the midfield, play well, and then we know full well we're not going to have him against Arsenal, that's going to highlight the fact that he's so important and make it a little bit more of a daunting task to go to the Emirates. So I think it's been surprising form, to answer your question, and hopefully we can keep it going now.
I mean, because of what you lot have obviously done in the game since Pep Guardiola's walked in, 100 points, treble, etc., you lot always going to be marked, judged very harshly. Anytime you don't win, the media is going to say it's crisis and everything's over and where do they go from here and all of that sort of jargon around it. You kind of touched on it. I mean, I'm happy beyond the obvious that Rodri isn't there because Rodri's a fantastic player, but he seems to, away from, Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri seems to be the villain against Arsenal. If it's not a moment where he's kind of rallying up our fans, he actually isn't known for goals goals, but he typically pops up with one. I mean, we'll be here all day talking about Rodri's quality, but what have you made of, you know, the changes? Because you've won a treble, you've let some key players go, you've brought some in. What has it kind of been like on the footballing front, really? You know, Doku's come in and looked very well. I was actually watching a video with you, that you did around Doku versus Grealish, and I think you made a great point in that. Obviously, for the neutrals, it's kind of easier to gravitate towards Doku because he's a quote-unquote more exciting player. He gets bums off seats, etc.
Yeah, he's explosive, man. He's like he's raw, though. You know, there's something raw about him. Because against Wolves, the end product was lacking. And he reminds me of St. Maximum a little bit, just like you can't take your eyes off him, puts you on the edge of the seat, gets to the byline, and then you're hoping the cross is good. More often than not, it's looked good so far. A lot in the end product side of things, Adama Traore, another type of player, these flair players that are just frightening speed and skill.
Yeah.
But the end product was a little bit 50-50, you know. If he can refine that, we've got a hell of a player, an unbelievable player, but polar opposite to Jack Grealish, who doesn't like to beat his fullback. He'd rather keep
more cute and clever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's more Pep, to be honest. He likes that. He likes that possession-based football. So the approach in the transfer market was a little bit surprising because he's really focused on going for players that can carry the ball more than keep the ball. You know, dribblers. You know, like Kovacic he can keep the ball, but he's a dribbler. Yeah. Nunes is a dribbler. Doku's a dribbler. Even Gvardiol in the back. He dribbles out.
Very much the modern day defender, you're right.
Yeah. So they're all dribblers, which might just be a case of adding another style to our already pretty decent choices of styles we can go for, because sometimes you need to break the lines forcefully, you know, kick the door in, you know, passing it around can be easy to defend against. And sometimes you just need someone to just break that door down, you know, and Doku fits the bill when it comes to kicking the door in, you know.
That's a good thing because, like, you kind of touched on it. It's like, I know you lot have had Sterling. Technically, Jesus, when he was at City, played all about the place. At Sane as well. Typically, most people say Pep doesn't like explosive wingers. So did the Doku signing kind of take you by surprise? Because he is a quality player. Like you said, if his end product could improve, like, he's got the potential to be one of the best wingers in the market, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's there's elements to his game that I think there's a little bit of raw talent there. That, I mean, even he came on for the last 15 minutes against RB Leipzig and 1-1 at the time, bags himself a goal and an assist in that time. He tried 3 dribbles and he lost it 3 times. So that's, you know, there is elements to his game that need working on. And there's no better manager, though, to sit him next to, and Pep Guardiola get in the ear of Doku and hopefully just like know when to dribble and know when to pass. And sometimes I think City fans are frustrated at Jack Grealish right now, because especially when Doku comes in, because he's just too exciting. And
Grealish, it's almost harsh to Jack, really.
It is. I feel a bit for him because he was a big part of our treble last season, a big part. He did shine at the end of last season. He got his goal at the Emirates as well, albeit it was a bit of a deflection over Ramsdale's arm.
Jack is finished, man.
I ignored the deflection, mate. but no, it was an all right finish. And I thought Jack was good last year. I thought he was good. And he's coming onto a bit of unfair criticism from City fans right now. A lot of it comes from the drinking and the antics and the celebrations in summer.
Nothing to do with his footballing ability.
Exactly. A lot of the time it does come from that. The thing is, if he's getting pissed, you know, if he's getting like rat-arsed in summer, but he crosses the white line and puts out a 10 out of 10 performance, who cares what he does, you know? But it's when, you know, you make yourself an easy target, you know, if you cross the white line and you're dropping your performance, and then people start pointing the finger at what you're doing behind closed doors and things like that. So, but I think the main surprise to me was how hard we went for Declan Rice. Well, not that hard eventually. We pulled out pretty early. And I tell you what, I'd give anything to have Declan Rice right now, especially because
him and Rodri, you lot be cheating the game, man. It wouldn't be fair. Give us other teams a chance, bro.
It would be unfair, mate. It would be. But I was surprised that we went in for him and then pulled out. I think something went on there. I'm not too sure what went on, why we went in and then immediately pulled out after one bid. But you guys must be buzzing to have Declan Rice.
I mean, like you said, I mean, I can't not be buzzing to have Declan Rice. I think when we signed Timber, I know he's got the massive injury, but you could see in his own way what he brings to the side, and ultimately in his own way kind of takes us closer to what we want to do, which is what you lot are doing, or making us closer to fighting for the trophy. Declan Rice is obviously, we lacked physicality. The things I like about Declan Rice is like, it's like he's always been here. Like it's easy to gravitate towards him. He's larger than life. He was Mr. West Ham. There's so much to love about what Declan Rice has brought. Obviously, Raya is now competing with Ramsdale, so we're getting ultimately a stronger squad. The only one, and probably the guy that's probably going to sum up our summer, if it's been a success or a failure, really, would probably be Kai Havertz. But I don't really know why we signed Kai Havertz. I can't really see it. It was almost a signing where, as I said, you could see what Declan Rice brings. Everyone would, even if you didn't watch him, but you could see what he could bring to the team. Raya the same. With Kai Havertz, I was more of the belief of, you know what, Arteta, you know more about football than me. Everyone can make mistakes, but you're my manager. I believe in you. So if you see something in this guy, I can't see it right now, but I'll step in faith with you. And right now, I can't really see it. I'd love for him to put in a performance on Sunday. You know, he did play all right in the Community Shield. Not really. I don't really know what we're doing with him because I know a bit like Pep, Arteta likes multifunctional players. And I like the fact that we've got many multifunctional players. If they don't play in different positions, they can kind of like play different variations of their role. With Kai Havertz, it's like you can play everywhere, but like, what are you? You're playing as a left-sided 8. You're not really doing the business there. You can play as a false 9. I know false 9 is not necessarily about scoring, but you can't score. Can play out wide. I don't really want to see that, so it's a bit scary. Kind of keeping up the theme with transfers. Obviously, you lot let Gundogan, etc. leave, you know. And one thing I rate about Pep Guardiola is he doesn't really put up a fight. If you say you want to leave, he lets you leave for whatever reason. And kind of going to the Declan Rice thing, you know, you've had Declan Rice, Cucurella, Fred, I believe, Jorginho, Alexis Sanchez, and many more. When the deal doesn't make sense, even if you want the player, you step away. I think that's something Arsenal have learned to do. And it sounds stupid, but that's just essentially good business. That's what a competent club does. What have you made of players stepping up in the vacancy of players going? Because Julian Alvarez, he's probably unlucky that historically Haaland's in front of him. He's looked really good, really. And I'd imagine Foden's going to get more game time as well.
Player of the season so far, Julian Alvarez.
He's a really good player, man.
Yeah, but he's been on fire, mate. Absolutely.
That free
incredible.
kick he scored, was it in the Champs? Madness or something? No, Wolves,
Wolves, and then he scored
Great
pretty
goal.
much. It's almost like, but in play, the goal he scored against RB Leipzig was sort of similar to the similar position from where he hit
Disgusting finish.
Against it. Yeah, it was unbelievable, mate. Absolutely, he dug it out. It was almost a bad touch, wasn't it? Like underneath him, so he had to dig it out from under him. But to do it and
smashed
then
it top bins or something, I was like, wow,
unreal,
that's ridiculous.
Man. It was class. It was class, and I think he's been our best player. And last year, he still put up the numbers. He was putting the numbers on the board last season for a striker who's just turned up into the Premier League, but he was forever living in the shadow of Erling Haaland, you know, and getting glimpses. Yeah, and I mean, Haaland's Haaland, isn't he? It's like, whereas this year, very, very different. Haaland hasn't scored in 3 games, and Alvarez
he's coming to the Emirates on Sunday. That's going to change, sadly, man. We hand out these goals, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, to go 4 games without a goal, you do start. I mean, 3 games without a goal for Erling Haaland. I mean, the guy's entitled to a drought. Do you know what I mean? He's got credit in the bank with regards to scoring goals and stuff. So he's due a drought. But you go 4 games without a goal, you do start to question his form. And would you be questioning his involvement? Because that was last season's topic with Haaland, wasn't it? How involved is he in the play? We heard Jamie Carragher talk about, has he signed for the right club and things like that, but he kept putting it in the back of the net, so who cares what he's doing? You know, he had 6 touches and 3 goals, those type of ridiculous stats, you know what I mean? But now it's like, you know, now it's like no touches at all, like 10-15 touches per game and no goals and a really low percentage passing accuracy. And then you start to question it, because if he's not putting it in the net, which is pretty much his game, that's all that we want from him, and then you start to worry a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm hoping he can go and score and stop the rot at the Emirates.
He definitely will score against us.
You've got a funny feeling.
It's a tricky one, and even that's a good question, because as an ignorant non-City fan, you know, I share your opinion. There was that whole, you know, Haaland. You mentioned goals, but in the modern day, especially for Pep Guardiola, you need to do goals and everything else. And I definitely feel, from like the first 6 months of him being at City towards the end of the season, I actually feel he was involved a lot more. Like, I can't remember the goal or who scored, but there was one of them. He was really involved in one of the goals we conceded at the Etihad. How have you seen his development in terms of his general play improve then? Yeah,
that was what you want from him. That was De Bruyne, wasn't it, to make it 1-0?
Yeah,
He came
exactly.
down, he got involved, and I think he fended off. Was it Gabriel? I think he was fending off. He
and
brought
then
it down,
Kevin
and
De
he just
Bruyne was
knocked
on his
it
back.
in for Kevin De Bruyne. Yeah, it was really good. That's what you want from a number 9. If it's not goals, then you want him to be a springboard for everybody else to receive the ball and let the rest of the midfield join the attack. But now I don't think it's a case of he's dropped in his quality. I just think he's being swarmed by defenders. You know, he's almost being
entity now.
Yeah, he's just almost being treble marked at times. There are teams that are going 3-on-1 against him.
You've got that with Saka, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, how's the guy supposed to have any end product if he's surrounded by defenders, and the passing accuracy is going to be low when you're receiving the ball and you're surrounded by defenders? And especially when you're the focal point, if you're in the middle, you've got options around you, but you can only really go backwards, can't you, as a number 9 when you're receiving the ball and you're marked by
it's almost like
the whole
blinkers
defense.
On. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. And Kevin De Bruyne's absence might be an easy excuse. It's the obvious excuse, but it might be the excuse for Haaland not getting as clear-cut chances, because there's no one in the world like Kevin De Bruyne at sliding it down those channels and those low crosses that come in. Perfect for Haaland.
I'm really happy he's not there. I'll be honest.
I mean, if you could pick 3 players that wouldn't be playing against Arsenal, you'd pick Rodri, De Bruyne, and Haaland, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
luckily, we've got
2 of the 3
Haaland's out
of
form. Yeah, Haaland's out of form, and the other 2 aren't playing. So
exactly,
you could have some confidence. You should have some confidence, but it was that Lens game midweek that gave me a bit of confidence watching that. In the second half in particular, I thought the absence of Saka and Martinelli, that showed that it looked like there was a little lack of creativity. Normally, they were flooding in against Bournemouth, destroying Bournemouth with ease. And then it's without Saka, there was that, where's the creativity coming on? And Trossard I think he's a good player. He always does well against us as well. Even in Brighton, when he was at Brighton, he was scoring goals against City. Got his goal against City in the Community Shield in the 9,000th minute. Wasn't it? Yeah. But I wonder what you're going to do in Saka or Martinelli and Martinelli's absence, and even if they are fit or not, because there's a couple of publications, Football London, for example, are saying Saka might be fit. What do you think? What have you heard about that? Is he likely to be fit or?
I mean, do you know what? It's one of them where we've kind of been here before with Saka. Like Arteta, I think he's learned from Mikel Arteta and Pep, and I mean from Arsene Wenger and Pep, in that he doesn't really give much away. He says sometimes he's very crystal clear, sometimes he says a whole lot of nothing. But I think there's a method to his madness. I think this season, on a lot of occasions, he's always said it don't look good around Saka, and then you pop up on match day and Saka's there. Now, as good as I think Saka is, and he's durable, and we've played him near enough every game since he's come into the first team from the academy. You know, every player has their limits, and obviously I'm always a fan of, if we have to lose a battle, don't lose the war. If Saka isn't fully fit to play minute 0 to 90 or some sort of the 90 minutes, don't play a minute. But with him being called up for England, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, bro, but I'd imagine the medical staff of Arsenal and England have to have kind of said, even if he's not going to be fit for the City game, he'll be available. And I would want to risk him if I'm honest. That's my biggest problem, if I'm honest with you, because Trossard's just coming back from injury. You mentioned the Lens game. I love Trossard, but his touch was baggy. It was a poor performance from everyone, but Trossard weren't really at it. Martinelli, there's been rumours for a few weeks that he could be back. Even if he is back, do you start him? And I would love to start Jesus, Saka and Martinelli, but you've got 2 of your wingers not really fit. Do you risk that, or do you start one of them and kind of have one as a super sub? So there's about 3 of our wingers that are not necessarily fully fit. I'd go with Jesus. I know some Arsenal fans are saying play Havertz through the middle. I'd rather play Eddie Nketiah. I get the logic between Havertz, but I just feel there will be chances for you, and I need you to take them. And Havertz, don't look confident in a game against City. You've got to be confident. There's going to be games where our minutes in the game, where our backs are against the wall, where obviously you're doing what City does, but I need genuine belief. So it's a dodgy one. And I do think you made a good point about our creativity. That's probably been my one major criticism of Arteta, because I feel, bro, that we've improved a lot off the ball, like really off the ball. I think in the middle of the park, there's not a single team in the Prem or in the world that we can't give a good game. It's now in the defensive third and the attacking third. And it's a bit weird, but I feel with my team, we take more risks defensively than in the final third, where surely you should take that in the opponent's half. I feel our attacking play is a bit scripted. It's almost a bit too perfect. There's not that healthy percentage of of randomness. Like City are not going to come here and have 10 men behind the ball, but you're going to have a certain defensive structure. And I think if your structure's on point, we're going to work it side to side, and then eventually you're going to end up losing the ball. We're not necessarily going to knock it into the box. So I don't think our chance creation and actually our chance conversion is quite there. Even the Bournemouth game, really and truly, like, not to be overcritical, but 2 of them were penalties. The other goals were well worked, but I guess not every manager will say their team's not where they're going to be at this point in the season, but I still don't think we're there. And as you know yourself, ultimately football's decided by how efficient you are in the opponent's half and what you do in your defensive line. And the last couple of games against City, by our standards, it's been a lot closer in the Premier League, but fundamentally we've lost. I think that's the main difference. Like, it could be a game that's heading for a draw. We give you lot 3 chances, it's going to be 3-0 or 3-1 or something like that. We can't guarantee we're necessarily going to take ours. What do you make of the midfield battle? Because, you know, if there's any reason for Arsenal fans to be confident, there is no Rodri, there is no Kevin De Bruyne. And me personally, yes, it does give you confidence, but I think you'd be very silly to assume that, you know, our chances are simply gone up, because I think Pep's going to just double down on the attacking sense then. What do you make of the midfield? What sort of midfield battle do you expect? And who do you expect to line up for you in the middle of the park?
Yeah, Pep's just done his pre-match press conference before this, so he's just announced that Stones isn't ready. I personally would have picked him to play in the middle. We saw at the end of last season, with the final 10, 15 games of the season, John Stones was playing in the double pivot alongside Rodri.
That's what I thought we'd do with Rice, you know, to be honest.
Yeah. This new halfback role, whatever you want to call it, Pep's
hybrid role,
role. Yeah, this centre-back when we don't have the ball, but defensive midfielder when we do have the ball, and gives us the numerical advantage in the middle of the park. I would have picked Stones straight away. The fact that he was on the bench against RB Leipzig made me had a feeling that, good, he could play right now in the middle of the park and do the Rodri job, and probably have Kovacic or Nunes alongside John Stones. I feel safe, but he's just said he's not playing. So now I'm gutted. What
do you think's happened there then? Like you said, he's been on the bench. Like, what do you think's happened in the days or whatever?
I've no idea, mate. He was supposed to be a day or 2 away 3 or 4 weeks ago. So for him he was supposed, Juan Malilo, our assistant coach, who took over when Pep had his back injury and he couldn't be on the touchline for 3 games. Juan Malilo was saying, he's this close to coming back. And then it's only until now have we seen him, and he's only gone on the bench. And now the next game, he's supposedly not ready. Maybe because it's Arsenal and it's like he's not played a minute of football this season. And like, you couldn't be a deeper end than the deep end of Arsenal at the Emirates, throwing him straight in
What
there.
a baptism of fire, yeah.
Yeah, so I can see why he probably wouldn't play him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the bench as a precautionary substitute to have possibly. The issue, I think most City fans would say, don't play Calvin Phillips, because I feel sorry for Calvin Phillips. He's our only other natural defensive midfielder. Like for like kind of change. Yeah, exactly. But he doesn't ever do anything on the pitch that grabs you. And the thing is, as a defensive midfielder, you're not a headline grabber anyway. You're not getting goals. You're not getting assists. You need 10, 15 games in that role to prove yourself and earn the respect of your manager and your fans and things like that. But he's not playing. And if he's not playing, it's because Pep says you can't play. And if Pep says it, I go with Pep. Like you go with Arteta. You've got to trust Pep. The 2 guys are proven managers. So I think we've got to give Pep the benefit of the doubt. So you can't trust Calvin Phillips. So I can't see him playing when he could have played in the last 2 games out and out as a defensive midfielder. He hasn't. So I've got a funny feeling it'll be Kovacic and Nunes, which makes us vulnerable, I think, because that's the start against Wolves. We lost that game. I don't know who else. Akanji possibly could play in that role. He's been
I can't pronounce his name, but the Croatian lad you signed, that he can play left back, centre half, and he can actually play in midfield. I don't know if Pep will go with that in a game like this, but I mean, Pep's known for being innovative. That could be something. Why do you think it's gone poor for Calvin Phillips? Because I would describe Calvin Phillips as a rare failure. It almost shows you that as great as Pep Guardiola is, he's human, because I can't name too many players that haven't worked out at City, but it does seem like he's a bit critical on Calvin Phillips. He says like he's overweight, this, that, and the other. Now he's saying I feel sorry for him. Do you think it's just not a right match? You mentioned the defensive mid role. Is it a case of City, you got to be on the ball a lot more? It's not just, breaking down attacking moves and whatnot.
Yeah, I think City are pretty good at doing their homework and vetting players and making sure they're a good fit. And like you say, we used to get it quite wrong back in the day prior to Pep Guardiola, but since then, it's normally 9 out of 10 of transfers have worked out pretty well.
99.9%, yeah, man.
Yeah. And Calvin Phillips is that 0.1%, unfortunately, by the looks
Sadly,
of things.
yeah.
But
still gets in the England squad, though. It's all right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's receiving the ball from with his facing Ederson. That's his issue for me, and it stood out straight away. Rodri's got this ability to have eyes in the back of his head, receives the ball from Ederson. He'll ping it out to right back, ping it out to left back, or turn if he's given a shout, whatever it may be. And he's so cool on the edge of the area. Calvin Phillips seems to panic a little bit. He's got those little Bambi on ice footsteps where he looks a bit worried.
Culture shock for him.
Yeah, something's not quite right. He's definitely improved in that aspect since we signed him, but I still think that's what Pep doesn't trust in him. But put him with his face towards your goal, Calvin Phillips can spray passes around really nice. Like he's got a great vision, and those diagonal balls are brilliant from Calvin Phillips, and that's what we see in an England shirt more often than not. But I think Pep's more worried about the other end in our build-up play. And Calvin's a bit slow when he comes to, and physically he is slow as well. He's slow on the turn, and he's caught out of position a couple of times. And he was given the game against Newcastle, and I mean he went up against Joe Linton, who's a beast of a player.
That's a beast of a player physically. Yeah, man.
Yeah. And he struggled against him at times. He did tackle him a few times as well, but it was a 50-50 game between the two of them, and he didn't really grab any headlines again. So, and next game you're thinking, right, he's going to play against Wolves because that'll be the right test. But Pep doesn't even start him. So there's your giveaway, isn't it? If he's not starting him in the Premier League, he's not going to be playing against Arsenal. If he can't start against Wolves, there's no way he's playing against Arsenal. Which makes me think who in midfield, because Akanji's been pushing forward out of defence. And like you said, Gvardiol he's been fixed on that left-back role. It's almost like a left-back. We turn into it's a completely new system at City this season. And I'm wondering what we're going to do against Arsenal, because we do have a new system. Whereas last season, it was Stones pushing into midfield from centre-back, leaving three at the back. We're still having someone push forward, but instead of it being a centre-back, Kyle Walker's been overlapping. And Foden, rather than an inverted fullback or an inverted pushed forward hybrid centre-back, whatever you want to call it, we've been inverting Foden. And Foden's been tucking in on the right wing. So going in an attacking sense, we've had two attacking midfielders behind Haaland with Alvarez and Foden, and Doku or Grealish on the left, leaving a big gap on the right for Kyle Walker to run into. And we've been found out going the other way when Kyle Walker's gone forward. Sheffield United got their goal from a Kyle Walker mistake, and another goal's come down Kyle Walker because he's quick, but he's not that quick. Do you know what I mean?
Superman, yeah,
exactly. If he's out of position, he's out of position. So it'll be interesting to see what we do against Arsenal, or do we revert back to this box in midfield that we have and keep it a bit more flat at the back without giving Kyle Walker a license to roam forward, because that's not his game. Kyle Walker's he can go forward, but he's not the most fullback. He's not the most creative. You know, I don't picture Kyle Walker whipping crosses in and Haaland getting on the end of them. You know, I picture him running back and stopping counterattacks and things like that. But yeah, in terms of what we do, that we reverted back to Bernardo Silva and Grealish against RB Leipzig, which I felt that the control was so much better. We dictated the play. And I kind of hope we do that again, you know, stretch Arsenal rather than tucking everyone inside. But that also depends on what Arsenal are going to do, because RB Leipzig, Wolves and Newcastle were all three very defensive-minded setups, and they banked all their players in front of the area. I can't see Arteta doing that against City, because I think the Arsenal fans will demand like an attacking performance. At least go for it. Try and go toe-to-toe with City. Whether that works out well for you or not, because normally we do tend to do quite well in a possession-based game. If the other team's trying to keep the ball, we tend to keep the ball a little bit better. But if anyone can, it's Arsenal, because you're one of the best in the world at keeping the ball alongside City. So I don't know what we're going to do, mate. I don't know what we're going to do. It's I think it's a more even game than it was ever last season. And the fact that you faced us last season post-World Cup, that's us in peak form. We'd hit the ground running at that point. We'd found our feet, and you were facing us at the worst possible time, because we were purring last season when you faced us. Now it's start of the season. There's a couple of blips have already happened. We're finding our feet. We're trying a new system. We've got suspensions. We've got an injury to two of our best players. It's going to be I think this is a real closer game, much closer game. I'm predicting 2-2, to to be honest.
I
I'll
mean,
take that.
if you offered me a point before, of course I'd love to win because, again, like, let's be honest, we've been getting our asses slapped by you lot, really. We've lost 12 in a row. It's unheard of. It's quite upsetting, really. I think it, like, kind of what you're saying, it's nice to know that I feel the same sort of way. It feels like it's going to be a bit of a chess match of sorts where it's just going to be that one moment. And when I look at the games against the other top 6 sides that we've actually won in Man United and Spurs, where it could have been better, it could have been worse. You know, when we took the lead when we equalized, against Man United, that kind of led to our own detriment against Spurs. These are the fine margins that go against us. And like what you said with how you lot have been playing this season, it seems to me like the games could be played in the pockets because, you know, you're seeing the right-hand side as Kyle Walker. I'm seeing that as Zinchenko. As you know, Zinchenko goes in midfield, he inverts, but he leaves a lot of space in behind. And I think that's the devastating thing. It's like, are you lot going to lure Arsenal into a false sense of security? Because our focus across 90 minutes is not to the standard of you lots. That's obviously where we switch off. We do have that element of making things harder for ourselves, kind of in the same way I feel we can be our own best friends. We can also be our own worst enemies because of these moments. And games like this are a real test because naturally, bro, you don't get away with this against the best in the land. And it's a good test to see exactly where we're at. It's the midfield battle. The one thing I want to win is the midfield battle. Obviously, I want to win the game, but I can't account for us being switched on defensively, nor can I take in our chances. I think in the last few games against you lot, the midfield battle, Arteta has shown me that he can do something to kind of stifle you lot, and you lot haven't got your best attackers. I think he's going to have to find the balance. It's easier said than done. Like, we can't play your game better than you, but we can play our game to the maximum. So we're going to need to find that balance of being kind of competitive. I think long gone are the days in the Premier League historically where teams are just going to sit back for 90 minutes, one chance, bang, they walk away with 3 points. I think we're going to have to match you and believe in ourselves. And I think that's where I'm kind of worried, because do we go with someone like Tomiyasu, who is probably better than Benjamin White or Zinchenko defensively, gives us a lot in the air, but what he gives us defensively, you kind of rob from an attacking sense, because when, like, even the Lens game, Tomiyasu and Saka, once upon a time, that was our first choice right-hand side. But Tomiyasu is more of a conservative player. He doesn't really overlap, and Saka's even more isolated. He's dropping even deeper, which naturally plays into you lot's hands, really. So it will be an interesting kind of clash to see exactly what's going on. What was the other question I wanted to ask? Where would you say would the key battles across the pitch, if you just had to guess, then would be?
I think it depends where you play Gabriel Jesus. To be honest, if you play him up front, I think Ruben Diaz loves a physical battle. Jesus loves a physical battle as well. That's the thing, but he's going to lose that battle.
Naturally, he's playing a Portuguese man mountain in Diaz, probably the best centre half in the league, really and truly.
Yeah, so I think you're better off playing Nketiah probably on there, and I would play Jesus on the left. And City fans will know that Jesus has played on the left before for us.
Arsenal fans won't be happy with that shout, bro.
Will they not be? Will they not?
No, but they're not fans of Jesus out wide at all. But like you said, the man can play out wide.
Yeah, no, he played there for us. Went away to the Bernabeu and ripped them to pieces down that left-hand side. And he put in an unbelievable performance for City. And he doesn't like it, though. He's openly said he wants to play through the middle. But I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I don't think he needs to use his speed against Kyle Walker. If he goes up against Kyle Walker's an immense player at stopping players that have got raw power and speed. Like Mbappe, he's obviously got skill. Vinicius Junior, yeah. I think Gabriel Jesus is such a box of tricks, isn't he? He's such a tricky player. And Kyle can sometimes struggle against these players that are just more cute than pace and power and skill. Like, I think he's just a cleverer player than people give him credit for, Gabriel Jesus. But yeah, I don't know if he will play. Who would play left if it's not Gabriel Jesus? If Martinelli and Saka are not fit,
this is the thing. Do you go Trossard? I don't think he'll go for Smith Rowe, but keeping up the theme of what we've been talking about with Grealish and Alvarez and Foden and and Zinchenko and all the pockets, I would lean towards Smith Rowe. I think Smith Rowe is kind of behind Fabio Vieira and Kai Havertz, so I don't expect him to start. I don't expect him to play a kind of wild card in Reece Nelson, purely because I don't think Pep is expecting Nelson to start, so there could be that. You probably have to go with Jesus and then Nketiah, but I just have a funny feeling that if we're kind of acting in relation to who's fit, it probably is going to be Havertz through the middle, Jesus off the left. And if push comes to shove, out of all the players struggling for fitness, we'll probably just bet on Saka. Even if he can give us an hour, it would probably be Saka, Havertz, and probably, Saka, Havertz, and Jesus out wide. What do you make of Jesus through the middle, though? Because I do think we're getting to a scenario as a club where, a bit like with City, in that, as you said, Jesus is a wonderful player, quality player. You know, I call him Brazilians. But the one mediocre thing about him is ultimately scoring. I do think you can improve your taking chances, but at 25, 26, if you're not necessarily clinical now, you're not really going to get that. And I feel we're going to get into a scenario where we might get another striker, and you still are going to play a lot and maybe get game time through the middle, but you might just have to become a winger.
Yeah, possibly. He's an instinctual player, isn't he? He seems to score the hard ones and miss the easy ones. The goal
like
against Lens.
Facts.
Yeah, against Lens, it was exactly that. It was one touch, knock it past his defender, doesn't even need to look at the goal, and because he's not thinking. If you make him think,
the same.
He'll miss. If he has time to stop and think and decide, make a decision, he isn't decisive enough. Whereas that was just an instinctual finish on, was it Wednesday night, Tuesday night?
Yeah.
And he tucks it into the bottom corner like really well. And they're the goals I remember him scoring for us. And he can score goals, and he'll probably come away with 10, 15 goals at the end of the season, maybe more. But it's the ones he misses, you know, it's the simple ones where it's like he's got a bit of time. And
that's what gets you to 25, 30.
Yeah, it infuriated me watching him sometimes. But yeah, he's a brilliant player, and there are things that he offers that most number 9s don't have both, do they? That ability, because I mean, if you look at Haaland, there's no way Haaland's ever going to put in the work rate or the skill or the agility or the creativeness of Gabriel Jesus, because he gets plenty of assists as well. But I mean, if you pick it out of the two, I'd rather Haaland, to be honest, because it's just purely the numbers.
It's not a disrespect to Jesus. Goals win games, you know. As much as I love Jesus, Jesus is someone like, if you've got both of them, like how Jesus was at City, it's not to disrespect him, but you're almost a support actor, a squad player. You can't disrespect what you give to the team, but you're not really the go-to man. You're not, when you think of City, like the Diaz's, the Kevin De Bruyne's, the Haalands, like Bernardo Silva, dependent on form throughout his years, them kind of things there. And I feel at Arsenal, it's a bit different, because similar to Zinchenko, he was kind of that kind of ranking at City. You lot are kind of the leaders now, and I'm going to be honest, I'm looking at guys like that to want to perform, because you came to Arsenal and in your interviews you said you want to make the difference. These are the games, really and truly. You kind of touched on it, you know, in City, and you've conceded a bit of goals and things. If, as a City fan, better yet, if you was playing against you, or just generally, what weaknesses would you say, or what areas would there be to exploit in that City team, as perfect as you lot are under Pep?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Very hard. That's why I'm a City fan, man. You watch them week in, week out.
Trying not to be arrogant, but we haven't got many.
Nah, you're being honest, man. There's not many. You want a treble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. The proof is in the trophy cabinet right now, isn't it?
Exactly.
But, right now it's Rodri. I think you'd fill that with Odegaard. Just have him causing havoc in that pocket behind whoever it is as you play as a number 9. If you can get Odegaard filling those pockets, whoever it is going to play, it sounds like it's either Kovacic, Nunez, or possibly Calvin Phillips. I don't feel comfortable with any of those names that I've just named to go up against Odegaard. Whereas Rodri, I just feel like his physical presence and his intelligence. I mean, Odegaard still obviously would cause Rodri problems, but
there's just a higher level of footballing IQ and just ultimately quality, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think without a defensive midfielder, really, I think that's where you can pick us off. Other weak spot, maybe depending on the system that we play. If Kyle Walker's given freedom to go forward, he's got to get back just as quickly, you know, and you can do us on the counter attack, and that's what I would actually do. And I know you, as Arsenal, you're renowned as an attacking football club, and your fans demand that attacking style of football, and that's good. We kind of do now as well, to be honest. We've got it's a nice feeling watching us score plenty of goals.
You're right on that, mate.
This is the one game where if I was Arsenal, I'd say maybe go a little bit more reserved and try.
And that's where I need Martinelli or Jesus on the flanks, bro, to aid your point.
Yeah, and I think we are susceptible to counterattacks, and it's just we try and kill the team by not allowing them to have counterattacks. And Kyle Walker's like the perfect antidote to the poison of a counterattack, because he's just so quick, and he just gets back. Yeah, and he saves us so many times from real dangerous opportunities for the opposition. But now he's getting so far forward, it's not easy for him to get back, and we've already been exposed numerous times. Which makes me wonder what Pep's going to do in terms of, is he even going to allow him to go forward? But to answer your question, I think Rodri, the absence of Rodri is probably the main area where I think Arsenal could pick us off. Odegaard filling that gap. In the midfield for Arsenal, I don't know what they're going to do, because Partey's back, isn't he?
Yeah, he's back, but he's not fully fit. I'll be real with you, bro. Rice, Partey, Odegaard, that has to be it. If Havertz plays, then Arteta, I give you, you're the manager and whatnot. But I think if there's, as I said earlier, if there's one place, regardless of the result, that I want to have nothing negative to say, it has to be that midfield battle. Again, nobody wants to lose or draw, but if we lose to City, if we do everything we need to do, and I don't know, Haaland scores from 30 yards or one of your players does something great, you have to hold your hands up in it. It is what it is. But the midfield battle, especially because it's an understrength City side, as you said, it's not the Kevins, it's not the Rodris, Gundogan's not there anymore. I will find it a difficult pill to swallow if we don't lock that down. And I think with Rice, it's like having a handbrake of a car. It's just his recovery rate, like you kind of said with Kyle Walker. It gives me a lot of confidence, especially when Zinchenko is going to venture into midfield and everyone's going to get caught high. But I think Partey helps us in the transition from the midfield third to the final third. And as you said, with Odegaard in the pockets, and I think Odegaard, as an Arsenal fan, I don't think he gets his credit for how much of a defensive shift he puts in. I mean, he could be a model in another world. He doesn't fit the image of a player like that. So for me, I think it has to be that. I think he could go to, I do think Havertz is going to start in some capacity, purely because he bet on him. That's your man. I mean, you're a German international, a Champions League winner. These are the sort of games you should be starting someone like that. I just feel we're kind of reliant on our right-hand side, regardless. Obviously, with Saka, Odegaard tends to go out there. On the left-hand side, obviously, Timber's been injured. Zinchenko's had injuries. We don't know if it's going to be Martinelli and Trossard. And obviously, Havertz is having teething issues. So I think we just need to go with that midfield three, man. That's the one place I need to see us win that battle, really. And
Partey, Rice, and Odegaard, is that your three?
Yeah, man.
I agree, 100%. Mate. I agree. I think Partey,
it's a game where we're going to have to have that.
Yeah, I think Partey sitting would give a bit of a license for Rice to become more of an 8 rather than a double pivot, because I think Rice, we're seeing the attacking side of his game more than we ever saw at West Ham.
Exactly.
And I think he's such a quality player, and I think he's a Yaya Toure potential, box to box, can do both ends of the pitch. And if Partey's behind him, there's less worry going the other way. Rice doesn't need to worry too much about it.
They can save each other at times as well, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Rice can complement Partey, and he can also complement Odegaard in both defensive midfield and attacking midfield. And that's what I would do if I was Arsenal. And I think that midfield beats our midfield right now without Rodri in it. I think you put Rodri in it, and I think we come out on top. But without Rodri, I think that particular midfield of three, it's going to be difficult. And it's just what can Alvarez do against Partey?
And that's why I need both of them, because Alvarez is, I know obviously Haaland's going to be the one that's going to, he's probably in all the BT adverts and things like that. But it's Alvarez, because one thing I like about him, he's tenacious and his movement. He's a player that you don't find out where he is until it's too late and the ball's in your back of your net. And I think that's been an issue for Arsenal, is we don't follow runners. Like, I might be a fullback and I know that there's attack down the left-hand side, but someone might be covering for me and you can see a midfield runner bursting forward. I think that's actually, do you remember a few years ago when Bernardo Silva won a penalty against Granit Xhaka? In the build-up at the Emirates, in the build-up play to that's because we didn't follow runners. And as much as it's about on the ball, it's about off the ball in a game like this. Mikel Arteta and Pep Guardiola, they're from the same school of thought in that, it's off the ball that makes the difference. On that as well, what have you made of Arteta? Because obviously he was your assistant manager. He's come off to us. He's had a testing period at Arsenal and he's kind of getting it going now, man. What have you made of him?
I think now is the season for him to stop being labelled as the student of the master. I think it now needs to be master versus master. If he really wants to prove himself, I think now is this is the season. I thought he was incredible last season to go take us as far as he did to the end of the season for a title challenge. No one was expecting it to happen before the season, and it was brilliant to see that he's coming from a Pep school, and he's clearly, you could see the little signs of Pep Guardiola, and the link-up play was all very similar to Manchester City's style of play. I think now it's just the psychological aspect of his management. That's the issue that I think that separates him and Pep at the minute. I think I think the label of an emotional guy. He is an emotional guy. Sometimes I think he needs to rein it in a little bit and maybe send out the players with a certain message that isn't so excitable. Just send them out a bit cooler, calmer. Don't be so fired up because there was games at the end of just a little bit more relaxed. And I think Pep's brilliant at that. And he deflects the media really well, and he's good in the media as well, Arteta. But I think this is the year to really shine for Mikel Arteta. And I, to be honest, when he first went, I was a little bit gutted because as an assistant coach, he's like, as Pep, as number one and Mikel Arteta as number two, you don't really get much of a
spoiled, man.
Yeah, and that's why we got 100 points, you know, because that Centurion season was pretty much down. We've never been as good as that, and that was Pep and Arteta. Obviously, the treble winning season, but in terms of the Premier League, we just wiped the floor with the Premier League that season, and I think Mikel Arteta had a big say in that. But yeah, this is the year for him. I think the interesting thing in the title race now is the fact that it's not just City and Arsenal, and I think that actually bodes well for City.
You've got Liverpool and on paper Spurs right now just going about it. I mean, I hope they do what Spurs need to do, but you're right on that regards, man.
Well, that's it. You're hoping Spurs just be Spurs, don't you, really, and just capitulate at some point.
Man. It's coming. It's coming. They're getting some injuries. It's coming. You know, Spurs will revert back to type, or at least I hope so. Even though, as much as I don't like Spurs, I have to give credit to Postecoglou. It's really hard not to like him, even though he's a Spurs manager.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Not have an admiration for his talent. And even with Postecoglou, he's spoken about, I think he was managing in Japan or something like that. And he said, like, he came across Mikel Arteta. He once again came across Pep, because I think he was working in relation to the City Group thing you got going on. So he is a good manager, and he's an interesting man. And when I look at him, you know, obviously Arteta is probably more of a household name, respectfully to Postecoglou, but he's almost been in the game like a decade or so. Arteta's been in it, quote unquote, 2 minutes. Do you ever think Arteta will shape the Pep Guardiola connotations, in the sense of, I obviously, you know, as Pep said, Pep said, I'm nothing but an ideas thief. And I wouldn't have any problem if I was Arteta being, you know, I'm from the school of Pep. If you're going to copy someone, copy Pep. But I do think at times it's a bit unfair in Arteta, and it's almost a bit disrespectful, because he is his own man with his own thoughts. But as someone who's more or less seen them both, what do you make of them kind of statements?
Yeah, I think you're right in what you say. It's not a bad person to try and emulate, is he, Pep Guardiola? But exactly, Pep Guardiola himself is trying to emulate Cruyff and plenty of other managers before him that he's studied, and he's almost like become obsessed with it, doesn't he? And I think there was a documentary at the end of the Centurion season where those two would argue a little bit. You know, they would disagree and they'd come to blow. Ultimately, Pep being the manager, he gets the final say. But it's not like it's not like Arteta doesn't have a spine and wasn't standing up to him. So there was a powerful character,
bit of friction
in there. You know, and that's like, that actually boded well for us. You know, someone to actually question Pep. No, I don't think that's right, mate. And then maybe think like this instead. And it boded well for us. And that's a compliment to Mikel Arteta, that I think he can go and use that. And it's clear that he's a good enough manager to challenge Manchester City all the way to the end of last season. It's now that the reason I brought up Liverpool and Spurs is because I think the focus has to be split now, and I think other teams being involved in the title race is good news for City, because going in two-horse race, you just focus on each other. And I think Arsenal overly focused on City last season.
Oh, definitely towards the end of the season as well. 100%. We didn't play the games. We more kind of. It's funny you say that, because I would say the best example of that wouldn't actually be Liverpool away or West Ham away. For me, it would have been Southampton at home, because it looked like I can't remember if you lot were playing on the same day, but in the warm up and everything, it looked like we was a bit too excited. And then obviously we had that early mistake. We did come back in the game and draw, but that's the next stage for Arsenal, I would say, and being able to cope with all of that, really. And to a degree, I feel there's only so much Arteta can tell them. In the same way, I think there's only so much Pep can tell his players. They have to kind of find their self in that kind of calm headspace, if I'm honest. And I think that's the difference. Beyond the obvious, that's one of the differences between where you lot are at and we're obviously at. But hopefully with a year under our belts, we're a bit more seasoned in that regards.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's going to bode well for and to make it an entertaining season, at least for the neutral. I think Arsenal, Liverpool and Spurs and City are in for a genuine title race, to be honest.
Not United, though.
Nah, mate. It's just laughable, isn't it?
Excuses.
Laughable. Honestly, like, I don't even consider them anymore. That's the thing. I actually missed that little rivalry that they used to belittle us, man, and look down on us.
Funny how life changes, man.
Mate, now we just look down on them like, oh, it's almost like pity.
You're even taking their youth players now. Harrison Park or something?
Yeah,
16-year-olds.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a quality player as well.
He was at Arsenal as well, ironically.
Was he?
Played for three big clubs or at 16. He's had a crazy career already, man.
Yeah, so... But yeah, no, I do think the fact that the other three are potentially in the title race is good for City, because, like I said, Arsenal overly focused on City. We tend to focus on ourselves. We're obviously aware of everyone else who's in the title race. We're not idiots.
But you've earned that right.
Yeah, but I do think we, as a horse racing, we have the blinders on, so we don't want to look
It's
at
like
the
you
other
saying,
horses.
you're just gone.
Yeah. The goal line is the finish. That's what we're focused on that. And I do think Arsenal looked sideways too much at City and behind them at City, chasing you, and that pressure eventually told. Now you've got Liverpool to focus on and Spurs to focus on. So I think your best bet is to focus on yourselves, forget everybody else and focus on yourselves, and you'll go for another title race with City in the end. I think City are definitely going to focus on themselves again. And I think Liverpool are in the title race. I think Spurs will probably falter at some point, going off historical evidence of Spurs.
Open break.
But yeah, ultimately, I think it's going to, the last, up to Christmas, Spurs will be in there probably. After Christmas, I think it'll be one of the four will be chalked off as a proper contender, and that'll be Spurs most likely, I'd guess. And then you're in Arsenal, Liverpool and City. And that's going to be a tasty watch. It's going to be unbelievable.
And it's funny you mentioned the title race as well, because it's like you said, last season, it was for one reason or another, with a byproduct of you lot being you and us obviously being a breath of fresh air. I think this season is different, is because we're kind of a known entity now. You know what Zinchenko does, for example, you know what Saka does. And I think last season, you could kind of pick our strongest 11. You could kind of pick our 11, whoever weren't there. You can kind of do that now. But I think it's a case of Arteta's gone from having no food in the fridge to now he's got all sorts of ingredients to cook all sorts of meals. And it's like, when you've got so many options, what are you going to do really? And I think that to go with, I do think we have more depth, but there's now injuries. We kind of had a clean run in that regards. And the fact that games are coming every 3 days, I think Arteta's a bit of a weird one, because sometimes I don't really trust players individually or collectively enough. And sometimes I think he does it too much. And I think a bit like Arsene Wenger, I think that's one of his weaknesses really, in a sense of, I don't think he's a bit cool, calm and collected. Like I look at our midfield, and I don't want to keep talking about Kai Havertz, and I know it's easy for me as a fan to say, but if you want to do your Kai Havertz experiment, that's great. But how much better would we have been if we had like Declan Rice, Partey, a genuine number 8 and a genuine number 6, like somewhat the young Partey ready to take over probably from next season? I think we'd look a bit better. I think if we had that, and then you can do your experiments as much as you want, really and truly. And I agree with what you're saying about everybody being in the title race and whatnot. And ultimately, a byproduct is that's going to make your club better, because if there's more competition, Pep is going to be even more of a madman and staying up even more hours trying to find crazy ideas and little tweaks and that. Would you say this game is more of a tactical battle or a mental battle then?
Absolutely mental. I think both sides know the possibilities, not exactly what they're going to play like, but there'll probably be a plan A, a plan B, and maybe a plan C, of which the opposition of Arsenal, what they're going to be playing. And you'll probably know the same of what we're likely going to play. It's all down to the psychological aspect of the game now. Are you mentally strong enough now to go toe-to-toe with City and not be afraid of us? I felt like we could smell it last season. There was something,
100%.
yeah, there was a bit of fear in the game. And that first half performance at the Etihad, it looked lacking, in terms of no authority to your game, no genuine belief.
Wanting us to be gladiators, man. That's kind of what I want us to be on Sunday. Like, if we're gonna die on your sword, innit? Really?
Yeah. Oh, we've been there though, man. We did it in the Champions League, like going away to Real Madrid, and all the times we've gotten so close to winning Champions Leagues prior to the last season when we finally did. There was the same sort of feeling about us and this voodoo over us in the Champions League, and there was something just lacking in that belief, and that's psychological, because the week before in the Premier League we're destroying whoever it may be. And I feel like Arsenal are the same. I think they need to start believing a little bit. The fact that you've added what you've added to the squad surely means the only issue is Xhaka. I think he's been a big loss.
I think we're missing more than we should, and I think that's testament to Granit, and probably testament to, once again, what Mikel Arteta has or hasn't done in the market, because I think we needed to revitalize our midfield. And even though I believe that, I can't say we haven't. You spent 105 million on Rice. I'm in agreement with that, but you spent 65 million on Havertz. I have to assume Havertz is part of this midfield revolution. And in games where, let's say Bournemouth, for example, you can do the Havertz thing. We're going to have the bulk of the possession. We should be able to have enough. It's games like you lot where, by God's grace, Rice and Partey are there. If they're not there, I might be saying some of the things you're saying in relation to Rodri not being there. And I think that's now the step for Arteta. And I do think he's shown he's been ruthless. Tierney's not here anymore. Ramsdale signed a new deal and was his man, and obviously he's on the bench now. Had Timber have been fit, we might have been saying the same things about the goalkeepers as we're saying with Zinchenko and obviously Benjamin White. So it's an interesting one, man. And I would say it's a big test for my centre halves because I'm a big fan of Gabriel. I think he's our most underappreciated defender. Obviously, Saliba's got all the potential in the world. I think genuinely think he'll be at Real Madrid one day. But both of them have this tendency to both ball watch, and you leave the striker unmarked. You do that against Haaland. I don't need to tell you what happens, regardless of the form. It's not good for my team, in it really.
No,
it's not. Like,
doesn't bode well. I think an interesting part about Arsenal right now is the signing of Raya as well, because that reminds me of what Pep did. There's another Pep and Arteta similarity there. Coming into City, all City fans were loving Joe Hart, number one. There's no way Joe Hart's just being, and as soon as he comes in, Joe Hart, you're not good enough, mate. I don't care if you're a Manchester City fan and he's just out. You're not good enough with the ball at your feet. Signed Claudio Bravo. That was a bit of a flop, to be honest. But then in comes Edison, and we've never looked back. And the idea now of Joe Hart is terrifying. You know, someone who cannot play with the ball at his feet, and it doesn't bode well for Ramsdale, in truth. But it's the exact sort of signing. As soon as you signed him, I could sense there was that similarity. I thought he's going to be number one.
He has to be number one. You played almost every game, if not every game, for Brentford. I hear what Arteta says about I want two keepers. Fair enough, but Raya was your first choice before Ramsdale, and I wouldn't say you've assured Raya that you'd be the first choice, but you have to have told him, listen, you're going to be my guy sooner rather than later. And if he sat down and said to Ramsdale, try and prove me wrong, fair enough, that's great for Arsenal. And I think kind of like what you just said with Joe Hart, you know, I'm sure City fans probably were up in arms, like what's Pep doing, etc. If we want to go to where you lot are going, difficult decisions have to be made. Players that helped us become a top 4 team and a consistent top 4 team again, they might not be, everyone can't be part of that realm where to try and win things. And there might be a reality where Odegaard and Saka might not be 2 of the first names on the team sheet. I think we need to get comfortable with that. And I think Arsenal fans are a bit weird in that we scream about depth, we need options, we need this and that. It's always a crisis when one player is dropped. If Martinelli don't play, which was the case with under Arteta, it's an issue. I think we need to look at, if we want to be a team that's aspiring to compete on multiple fronts, you need a squad like what you lot have or have had historically. So I think we need to just get with it, if I'm honest. Yeah,
Arteta's proven time and time again now, and Raya is the final, well, maybe not final, but most recent example of Arteta proving that he's got a big set of balls between his legs, hasn't he? He's got a spine. He's not afraid to make these decisions. Aubameyang was out, wasn't he? And I see you later. That was a bit of an odd decision.
Granit Xhaka when the world was saying go.
He's got to go for that little tantrum he had walking off the pitch. But, you know, and there you go. And he became an absolute worldie for you last season, didn't he?
Exactly.
And these decisions take bravery, and going against the grain and hearing the outcry from Arsenal fans or the media, whatever it may be, and to stick to your guns and no, what I'm doing is right. I believe in what I'm doing, and I'm going to stick to my guns.
I'm back in my philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. And Pep and Arteta are exactly the same in that. Like, they do not make, like, they hold no prisoners, man. They make their decisions and they stick to them. So I think that bodes well for Arsenal. And yeah, I just think this season's going to be a real test for Mikel Arteta on the psychological aspect. That's the hurdle he needs to get over now. And genuinely believing that you can beat City to the title. And I think that'll be the difference this year.
And I think you're right. And just to add on that, I would say, you know, we need to find that medium, because obviously there's 38 games. God knows however many, if you go to the latter stages of the champs, etc. I think we need to find that medium in that. When we're really good, we're really good. But I'm not sure there's a single Premier League manager across a 38-game calendar, for example, would say his team's been amazing. Whether you've won, lost, or drawn would be amazing. I think we need to find that when we have done it on occasions where we can grind out results not being well, if Saka's not at it, if we've made mistakes, if what Mikel Arteta has demanded on the pitch isn't working. I think we need to find a way to grind out results like that, which I wouldn't say you lot had to do it as much last season, but you lot have shown when the going gets tough, it's just about results. Ultimately, all that matters is did you win or lose and what that correlates. Have you thought about life post-Pep? As dark as it might be to consider for you lot.
Absolutely not, mate. Absolutely
I don't blame you. I wouldn't either, man. Lock it down for life.
That's nightmare material, mate. I won't sleep thinking about that. To be honest, the way I look at it is we need to look across the road. How did the Rags deal with it? How did United deal with it? With Fergie, you know, how did they handle it? And they handled it poorly, really poorly.
Terribly.
There was
really.
no contingency plan. The plan was Pep, wasn't it? People have forgotten about Pep was actually linked with United prior to Fergie retiring. I want Pep, like Fergie was involved in the signing of David Moyes, I want Pep to be involved with whoever he goes for. prior to Mikel Arteta spending as long as he has done at Arsenal, he was on the shortlist. I think now he's quite ingrained into the Arsenal way. I can't see him coming to City now. I think there's a bit of there's animosity now between Arteta and City, just purely because of what happens competitively on the pitch. I think maybe one day, I don't know, but he was definitely on the shortlist as an idea.
Yeah, it did seem like he was going to be earmarked or groomed into that role when Pep decided he wanted to walk away.
Yeah. But now I don't know really. Yeah, Roberto De Zerbi, someone I quite like, but lately the last 2 games, maybe not. Marseille, they turned it around last night. Brighton, but they got spanked by Villa. So there's fragility in Brighton's game as well. So, but De Zerbi is someone who I think is young and up and coming, and there's other managers out there, but there's no one like Pep. And it's the day he leaves. Fans like yourself and the rest of the Premier League, you'll be jumping for joy, and I don't blame you, because Pep's just ridiculous. He's just an absolute genius, just genuine genius. I know potentially a once in a lifetime manager, really. You know, it really is incredible. So yeah, you've made me upset, to be honest, thinking about it.
I mean, hopefully that continues and filters through to your players. But that's actually what I want Arsenal to be prepared for, because I still think City will be up there. I still think you'll be challenging, but it's like you've got a great football club in not just Pep. Pep reflects it, and he's a great manager. But Pep, as you've seen with Ten Hag, and to be honest, early days under Arteta, they can have all the ideas in the world. In the present day, managers really count for little. The club has to back them, and you see it with, you know, the City group things you're doing, the youth academy, the players you're getting, the actually just not spending stupid money, being prepared to walk away and find alternatives. I think that I think you will get a good manager, but it obviously won't be Pep. I still think he'll be up there. I think the Prem will be quote unquote free game, and that's where I want my team to be, kind of hitting maturity. If we can bag a league title or so in that period, and if you lot hit back and do what you're doing, that's great. But I want us to be ready for that. I don't know when it's coming. I think he's got at least another 3-4 years. I don't think he will leave while you lot have them unfair charges against you. And I actually don't think he'll leave until he wins another Champions League. Do you actually feel sorry for, a bit of another question, do you feel sorry for whoever walks in through the door? Because I felt it for Arsene Wenger. They were doomed to fail. Probably the same with Ferguson.
Yeah, he's going to be the scapegoat, isn't he? And David Moyes was the scapegoat. He was the fans' whipping boy, wasn't he, for just abuse and get him out, and now the decline. But the thing is, like you say, I mean, we dissected Barcelona's backroom staff before Pep came, and we went,
everything the man wanted.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of like footballing directors, scouts, pretty much 90% of that, what's now ingrained into our club, came from Barcelona. Cheeky Bergenstein, Ferran Soriano, these type of individuals that are behind the scenes, that never ever you're going to hear opposition fans talk about these individuals, but they are the base, the foundation of Pep Guardiola's success. And they're a little team, and Pep Guardiola's the face of that team. But really, without them behind him, he would be nothing. He would be nothing, just like Ten Hag, who I actually think is a clever manager.
He's a clever manager. I think he's 10 excuses, but he is a clever manager.
I think, but there's behind the scenes at United's just shambles, isn't it?
Mess, and there's they didn't even fix the leaky roof, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's get piss wet through if you go Old Trafford now. Exactly. Even if it's not raining. But honestly, I think Pep will be. I'm hoping another 3 years of Pep would be really nice. He loves Manchester, mate. That's the thing. He keeps saying it. He keeps
probably the first foreigner I've ever heard say that. So that's a good look for you.
I know. Yeah. I don't even like Manchester, and I live here, mate. So ultimately, but I mean, I think it'll be 3 years. And I mean, if we can get any more of that, that's just a bonus. And like you say, it will be mopping up after Pep. Someone will be the scapegoat, and then we go from there. But hopefully the club structure stands us in good stead for whoever it is. And maybe, you don't go from United winning the league with Robin van Persie up front to 7th with David Moyes the next season. That's genuine collapse. That's a collapse, that really. A small one. It's not like City going down to League One. That's a proper collapse. But in terms of what United expect, then that was a bit of a collapse for them. And hopefully we can avoid that type of thing. But mate, I'm looking forward to this weekend, though. Really am. I think it's going to be an exciting game. Man.
My last 2 questions before I let you get out of here. Score predictions, and if you could take 2 players from Arsenal, who would they be? Not Declan Rice, because you kind of said that at the beginning. So
you killed me with that.
Yeah, man. I've got to make it a bit difficult, man.
To be honest, score prediction, I'll go 2-2. I think we're going to go 2-2.
I'll take a point.
Yeah, I would as well. Mainly, I mean, if
tell
we
your
had a
players
full...
that and tell your gaffer that, man. Let's live to fight another thing.
He's smelling 3 points. It's just
yeah,
I've still got
genius,
League One ingrained into my brain, so I'm still the pessimistic City fan.
You've been through the trenches, man. You deserve all the success you get them, mate.
I have, yeah. But
oh, man.
It's the fact that the Fulham game and Spurs game both finishing, getting a point at the Emirates. Your home form isn't as good as your away form this season.
We're too entertaining for the neutrals at the Emirates, man.
Yeah. And I think we aren't exactly. We got the RB Leipzig game, but I can't forget the Newcastle game and the Wolves game. So I think 2-2. But yeah, I think first goal decides this game, and I think if we score first, I think it'll still be it could end up being a draw. I don't want Hedge to drop. Yeah, if you score first, though, I think we could be in trouble because we've. I don't know. I just think
I would be more scared if we score first, bro.
Do you reckon?
Because you know what is. If you offered it to me especially as healthy as the Emirates looks now compared to, like you said earlier, when Xhaka walked, I would naturally want to play at the Emirates versus at the Etihad. But if I could, ironically, with the exception of the Lens game in the week, I'd rather have this been at the Etihad just because this season, I don't know what it is, but we just look a bit more professional away from home. We're a bit more, in a nice way, boring. We're too entertaining for the neutrals at the Emirates. Like, what the only massive thing I love about our performances at the Emirates is we don't die until the 90th minute. But I don't know if it's the fans. I don't know if we're more on the front foot. I don't know if our players are a bit more complacent, but there's just more professionalism away from home. So that's kind of why I'm nervous. That's why I can kind of see sense in what you're saying with the 2-2 draw. And it's like, if we concede first, I feel like we can get back in the game. If we score, we have this element of it's a bit nervous. The second half is a bit, you know what, it could go either way. So not that I would want to concede, but like I'm just nervous at the Emirates, man. So I think 2-2. I think with my heart, doesn't make sense. I'm going to say 2 on Arsenal. With my brain, I actually think we're losing 3-1, if I'm honest with you. But it's been 12 games in a row, bro. Like I can't see anything other than that. In recent years, it's been us putting up a more of a fight. It's like a school bully punching you up, but you landed a few punches, but you still lost the fight, didn't you? And it's just you lot are ruthless. Like you could score 3 goals out of nothing, and that might not necessarily reflect the whole 90 minutes, but fundamentally, that is all that matters. What the score says and who got the points, really. So man, with my brain 3-1. Heart 2-1 Arsenal, man.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. I think that's fair. To be honest, I think you're absolutely fair there. To be honest, I'll answer to your other question. I can't not have Rice. You're gonna have to let me have Rice.
No, man. We'll let you have Rice, but excluding Rice. Rice don't exist. Let's assume he's still at West Ham. He's not an Arsenal player. Okay. 2 other players, man.
Odegaard, definitely. I think Odegaard. I think he would walk straight in. I think De Bruyne's age, injury prone. He's obviously an immense player and he's a nemesis to Arsenal, isn't he?
Yeah. But, finally, a game where he can't score against. It's great stuff.
Yeah, but in terms of his career, I think with his age, he's starting to pick up a few injuries. I think Odegaard's starting to hit his peak. I would pick him straight away. And to be honest, I'd probably take Jesus back.
I thought you were going to say Saka. You let me down, man. I was thinking, surely Saka, man. Surely Bukayo. Maybe Saka. Yeah, I've got your team in front of me. That's why, and Saka's not in it because he's injured. So maybe Saka. I was looking at the team here. I mean, Saliba as well. I think, but we've got an army of centre backs. That's the thing. You've got too many, baby. I wish we'd do that soon.
I know. We played 4 centre backs last season, but effectively, even Walker wasn't playing. We were playing John Stones right back, Akanji, Diaz, and Laporte at left back at times, or Ake at left back at times. So we've got an army of centre backs.
1v1 defenders, man.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I think you're right. Saka and Odegaard, not Jesus. I think I'll take that back. Yeah.
For me, do you know what? There's a bunch of players. I'm going to try and not say the typical ones. Like it's easy for me to say Kevin Diaz, Haaland. Do you know what? I'd say Phil Foden for one. And Julian Alvarez, man, I know you're not going to sell us players anymore, but if I was Arteta, I'd be talking to his agent saying, listen, City are not going to love you like us. They've got Haaland. He's getting a new contract. You can play up front. Come on, we'll sign a couple more South Americans. I'd probably say Foden and Alvarez. But to be fair, do you know what? It might be a left field choice, but I'd probably say Ake or Akanji. And I'd probably more give it to Akanji purely because I honestly think he's a drug cheat, because that Akanji that was in the Bundesliga and the one I'm seeing right now, is they made him in the same lab they made Haaland. There's no way that is the same guy.
No.
He took credit
it's
to
his
Pep,
brother, mate. It's his brother. It's not him.
Bro, he's arguably signing of the season last year. I know Haaland's going to get it, but He was vital. He's a quality player, and he proved me wrong because you were dog shit in the Bundesliga. In the Prem, you're one of the best, man. So
I don't know why it came out of nowhere, proper out of
nowhere,
left field that time. 15 million as well, an absolute bargain.
Still,
and he's been a mainstay to our team, and now he's playing in midfield as well. You know, so he's not just as the centre back. And Pep, his passing accuracy, which is something I'm always focusing on because I know Pep hates players that give the ball away. It's always like above 95%. And I know sometimes you think, oh, well, that's a centre-back. He's just passing it sideways. No, that's easy.
Not in effect team.
Yeah, he's passing it forwards at times. He's really like assured with the ball, Akanji. And like you say, absolutely nothing like what he was like in the Bundesliga. I don't know what happened. Maybe he was just chilling in the Bundesliga, couldn't be arsed, thinking this is too small for me, this league. And he just wanted a bigger pond to swim in.
It has to be that, man.
Something. He stepped up and he absolutely
stepped up. Be a twin brother.
Yeah, has to be. But no, mate, I'm looking forward to the game. Really looking forward to it.
You're not alone with that, man. Obviously, before I let you get out of here, like at the start, let people know about your content. Have you got any content to come out prior to the game or after the game or whatever?
Yeah, I've got I was going to do a preview this morning, but I thought I'd better wait because I had a feeling something was going to be said about John Stones. So I'm going to do my preview later on today and schedule that for tomorrow. I've been doing match reactions and previews. I've started doing an FC24 little piss about because it's all too serious, this football, isn't it? Also, we need to take it a little bit lighthearted and
have some fun, man.
Have some fun, man. Exactly that. So I've started a FC24 little preview. So I'm going to do Arsenal versus City as a preview just for a
hopefully laugh. Arsenal win that, man.
Yeah, man. Well, not if I'm in control, you're definitely going to win. So. Yeah, but man. No, thanks very much for having me on as well. Really, really appreciate it, mate. Thanks very much. Enjoyed it as well, most importantly, man. Really enjoyed it.
No, man, I appreciate it. I got all the time in the world for honest football fans. Obviously, we're fans of, I always say I love Arsenal Football Club, but I'm a fan of the game first. So it's always wonderful to have beautiful chats with people. As the man said, make sure you're following Typical City on YouTube. Make sure you're following him on all his socials. They'll be in the description by the time this comes out. In fact, his YouTube, what would I call it? His YouTube app will be in the title. So you literally don't be lazy, people. Click it, subscribe, see what he has to say and all of them things. But broski, it's been lit being here with you. I know we said we'd go for half an hour, but I've let you been here too long. Let me let you get out of here, my guy.
Don't worry about it, mate. I've enjoyed every minute of it, mate. It's been really good. Thanks very much for having me
man,
on.
I appreciate it, man. You know, from the moment I emailed you, you showed the willingness to do that, and it's just about making enriching content. So yeah, man, thank you for doing that, man, and may the best team win on the weekend.
Yeah,
but yeah, nice people. Come on, man. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. We're out, people. Let us know your thoughts as well. Subscribe to Typical City. One love, folks. We're out.
There's always just that active red light, defenders. I think it's like